You know, I was struggling on a recent track I was working on. The simple answer to solve my struggles on this track was to actually start removing unnecessary stuff, unnecessary tracks, unnecessary plugins, effects, stuff like that. Except basic plugins like, for example, an EQ, maybe a sidechain, or maybe some sort of soothe plugin. Disabling effects, reducing or more or less muting return channels, and just stripping down to the core idea of the track. And that gave me a new point of reference to work from. I think it sort of saved this track. If you were one of those people that watched my previous video, that was the track I was talking about, but we can just watch this one because I think this video is going to be a little bit more interesting because I'm going to talk about my process, what I try to do when I produce my tracks, where I fail and it sounds like crap. So having less stuff in my project lets me sort of dig up that original idea again and help me just focus on what's most important in that particular track in my case. And for me, most often that's the melodic idea, motive of the track or the groove. That's sort of what I want to focus on mostly in the start, and then how the track is going to be arranged and progress over time. So in my previous video I showed off this track. This part is before I removed a lot of effects, all sorts of plugins, and this is sort of where I left my previous video. Obviously this track have different parts. It has an intro, it has sort of a bridge break, then it has the main drop, another break and another sort of drop, but the part I was struggling the most with was the melodic thing here. Okay, so let's take a listen. I don't think it necessarily sounds that bad, but I don't think it's clear and defined enough. It's too much, it blends in, the track blends in together. I can't sort of place the tracks in the frequency spectrum. The bass is sort of booming a little bit, sort of going into the synths, and yeah, you can EQ all of that, but I don't know, I was struggling with this. We had to do something. Here is the new version. In this one I removed most of the compressors. I reduced the return channels, like the parallel compression a little bit. I went down to more or less the basics, and the same part now sounds like this. And a quick clip to the first part again. Okay, and now the new part here. Also, I did some changes in the intro here. I thought the intro in my previous track, I didn't play that much in my previous video, but I thought it didn't flow that good. So I changed the intro to this, and I just added some harmonies below here. In my head, this new version I made, where I removed a lot of plugins, have more clarity. It's easier to follow the track in your head, and I think the idea is more clearly communicated. This is before I really have started the mixing stage. So what have I done? On the master track, I have just a utility plugin. This is the one that's included in Ableton Live. So this is to automate volume and stereo fields during transitions. That's basically it. So we have that on the master track here, where I drop the stereo down a little bit before the drop, reduce the gain here. So the effects get a little bit more pronounced when the drop starts. And then I have a limiter here, just to catch the peaks mainly, not to make it crackle. I'm not pushing it that hard. So that's the basic master track, nothing else there. And the other plugin here is reference tracks, so I can reference my mix. I did remove compression. I had some compression on the synths here. I'm going to get a little bit into it later in the video, what happened. I changed the kick sample to something that was a little bit more punchy, if we can say that. Just sounded better with this particular track. Goes a little more through the mix. The previous kick was a little bit more rounded, I feel, a little bit more dull. It was a little bit more like melodic house-ish type of kick. It didn't work that good. Spent a little time on the Moog, and I created a new rolling bass line. It's just a basic sound, but I wanted to add so this is the thing. I tried to do my best to create the sound I want with this synthesizer. I felt I was lacking some sub, and increasing the sub oscillator on the Moog didn't have the effect I wanted. So in this case, I added another track, which I used the Repro 1, and added sort of a subby bass below it. We have the foundation of the track, and yeah, I think that sounded much better than the previous one. When I start a track, usually when I start my tracks, I try to go for the melodic idea first. Often try to start that idea on my hardware synthesizers, either the Moog or my OB6, which I have out of the camera view here. Yeah, but those two I usually, yeah, they work just well for me because they just sound so good right from when you turn them on, in my opinion. So I can often get inspired, get an idea out pretty fast. But there's a point where you want to go from that idea to a fully fledged track, finished, polished up, ready to go, ready to be released for the world. That's what I'm doing here. I'm making music to be released, to be consumed by people. I have some kind of work ethic, so I want it to be of a certain quality before I put it out there in the world. And this is where I at sometimes fail, and you can see that in my previous video. And that's because I try to do too much too soon and add too much too soon. Sort of end up with just a mush of sounds. So what you really should do in the start, and what I should do, is don't have much plugins at all. Focus on sound selection. Select the sound that sounds as good as possible and use your faders in your DAW. Get the volume between the kick and the bass balance right at the start. I mean, then you have a foundation to continue working from. And then I keep working, I keep adding synthesizers, maybe other melodies and harmonies. If you have both the Moog and the OB6, they take a lot up space in the frequency spectrum. So you have to sort of kill it off a little bit with EQ. So you have to decide where you put your instruments in the frequency spectrum. So here I have a group with my synthesizers, and it's low cut around here. And that's just to give room for the bass layers here and to sort of glue it together with the bass. And that's the sort of stuff you can do at this stage, because this just requires an EQ. Obvious things in the low end, removing that you need to correct to keep your groove and flow state going. But the thing is, here is where it can sort of get dangerous, because you can start adding, you feel that, maybe that bass track needs something more. You're adding more plugins like saturation, compression, OTT, and other stuff you might want to look at later after you have sort of got the entire piece laid out more or less the way you want. My ideal goal here is to get the track to a state where you can almost feel that it is finished with having mostly just used the faders, the volume faders, perhaps an EQ, sidechain, maybe an soothe, just basic plugins you can find in your DAW. If those basic plugins doesn't give you the sound you're after, it might be wise to look at sound selection instead of adding more plugins. Maybe the sound you're using isn't fitting this track. So this is like I did. I changed the kick sample. It just changed the entire track. As I mentioned earlier here, what I did is I went into my synth group here. I removed a compressor I obviously or apparently have added. That compressor was killing the transients of all of my synthesizers in this group without me sort of realizing it. Because when I made the previous video, I was changing patches on my synths, trying different things. I was really frustrated actually. When I ended recording the video, the day after I did the same. I started changing patches and adjusting the synths, and it didn't sound good enough. And I realized that I had a compressor on my synth track here that was running a preset that was designed to remove the transients from the synths. Didn't matter what type of preset I used or what type of sound I dialed in. The compressor was just shaving it or pushing it down. So you never got any sort of punch or flow to it. And, when I removed that compressor, things started working a little bit better. And I sit here, I scratch my head wondering what the heck am I doing? And I have a compressor that is killing everything on my track, and I don't really remember why I put it there. Maybe I was at a point in that track in my previous version that I had some transients I might wanted to remove. But that's one of the reasons why you should try to build up your track with sounds. Try to hold off on the effects until you really, really, really know why you need them. So now I have the entire track more or less arranged, and I have a basic mix that I am happy to continue working with. I might want to add some small transitions here and there, maybe some air candy here and there. And I mean, I think that's fine at this stage. Maybe some other types of transitions. But this is also the stage where I might want to start using some of my analog outboard gear to add some color or saturation to the mix, because I do everything myself, mixing and mastering as well. Even if I have all of this cool analog gear here, it's not like you have to use it if you don't really feel the need to do so. I have another track I'm working on with another person, which I don't think I can show it. But in that track we have made everything in the mix. Everything from saturation to analog stuff to, yeah, from each and every track. So this other track I'm working on, I can basically just go to the master, add a fab filter limiter there, and the track is finished. Just adjust it a little bit. And if I add, for example, hardware effects like the Elysia X-Max, which is a awesome device, or something from the West Audio stuff, it falls apart because the track is not produced using one of these devices. It's really important to, yeah, just simplify it more or less. That's my problem. You can really get the idea out in just a few tracks, and that might just be enough. If the track isn't really working for you, I think actually saving it as a new version, don't just delete it, and just go into the tracks and remove until you get to the core essence of the track. So that's basically it. Some content like this when we don't have new Macs to talk about yet. And if you want to support what I do, I have links in the description to my own artist website, where I have my own Patreon. You can join that if you will. You will get access to some unreleased music and my entire catalog, depending on what tier you want to do. I have some shirts down below if you want to check them out and stuff like that. So that's basically it for today's video. I hope this video was a little bit better than the previous one. If there are something you want me to answer, type a comment below and I will try my best. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.